Ayo, what's good, reader fam? How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Today's video is a bit of a recommendations video, and it contains a paid promotion with Disney Book Group. My book recommendations today are going to be inspired by the release of The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. This book apparently has a very Riverdale meets Stranger Things vibe going for it, which by the by, I still haven't started Stranger Things, and I'm beginning to think that something is wrong with me because I tend to avoid things that I feel like I would enjoy. Like, I know I'm gonna love Stranger Things, and yet I haven't watched it yet. What's wrong with me?
Everything, apparently.
Anyway, this book follows three perspectives. The first perspective that we follow is Violet. After the death of her sister, she is moved without a choice to Four Paths, New York. When she gets there, she finds out that her family is deeply rooted into the history of the town. The reason for this is because they belong to one of the founding families. Another perspective that we follow is Justin Hawthorne, and his perspective is the one that I am most interested in. His bloodline has protected the people in the town from the Grey. What's the Grey? Well, let me fill you in here. It's basically this like lifeless dimension that imprisons a monster. I am spooked out right now. Spooky! The thing is, Justin hasn't inherited the powers that his bloodline has in order to protect the town from the Grey, so something's gotta happen with that. Like, that does not sound like a very good thing. Nope, nada, nope, nada. Then we follow Harper, who was abandoned in the Grey, and who was she abandoned by? Justin. What are you doing, Justin? Why are you abandoning your friends in the Grey? That does not sound like a very good thing. So she's kind of holding this grudge against Justin. I don't think grudges are good, but if my friend left me in the Grey, I'd be real mad. There's a monster in there that I don't even know what's capable of yet. You're just gonna leave me in there all alone? Thanks a lot. You and I will not be singing along to Hannah Montana's True Friends, that's for sure. Now we jump back to Violet because she's the one that kind of causes things to get a bit messy, you know, when she accidentally unleashes the monster from the Grey. The three of them must team up together before they're all devoured by the Grey. What a nightmare of a situation, and not just one that you can wake up for, like one that you have to live out. There's apparently some great ships up in here. Ship it, ship it, ship it, ship it, ship it, ship it, and an ensemble cast that you can't help but root for. I'm excited to read this because specifically I want to know more about the Grey. I am very curious. How did it come to be? What happens when you're in the Grey? Are you just completely attacked by the monster? Does other crazy stuff happen? I need to know, and I'm gonna find out once I read this book. I'm also really hoping that this book creeps me out because I love a good creepy book. So today, inspired by this book, I'm going to be talking about some devouring reads. Get it? Because the Devouring Grey, devouring reads. I mean, this book itself is being called a book that kind of sucks you in, and I love books that do that. So today I'm going to be recommending 5 books that kind of have that quality to them. These are books that you could read really quickly, possibly all in one sitting, books that could possibly get you out of a reading slump, and just books that overall I found were really easy to get through. Without further ado, let's get started. First up here I have the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi. The Shatter Me series is a dystopian series, and I'd be very surprised if you've never heard of this series because it's pretty popular. It kind of popped off on BookTube. It's been around for a while and it's pretty poppin'. The buzz for this series is loud, but the story begins with our main character Juliet, who has a lethal touch. She is locked up in a cell and is basically being called
a monster.
The world itself is falling apart, there are diseases left and right, and the government is just trash. And the government ends up being like, hey, we've got this girl named Juliet, she's got a lethal touch, we could use her. Yeah, let's do that, let's use her to our advantage. And things kind of take off from there. There is so much more to this series, and even the newest book, Restore Me, has kind of shaped this series into something completely unexpected. While I'm not a series binger, I aspire to be one when I grow up. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be somebody who can binge read series someday.
This is a series though that I could see being able to marathon read back to back to back, and really quickly too. Like, I could really see some of you speed readers out there flipping through these books within 2 days. Talk about FRE, fast reader energy. Wow, that was cringy. I recently did a 24-hour readathon where I read Restore Me, and I blew through that book. It was so fast. The writing, while beautiful, is also simple and not challenging to get through. The world itself isn't super complicated or hard to understand, and while the world is fine, I don't know anybody who reads these books just for the world alone. Like, I'm pretty sure the driving force behind reading this series is for the characters alone. You read it more so because of the friendships, the relationships, and the drama. Needless to say, while I understand why this series isn't for everybody, I do think it's one that's easy to be
devoured.
It's a full-on snack. So if you've got this craving inside of you for some great characters, or even frustrating characters, because this series has some frustrating characters, have this series on hand brand and it will fulfill your needs. Next up, we have the first book in the Wayward Children series, and that is Every Heart a Doorway. I would recommend this full series, but I haven't read the rest of the series, so I can't fully recommend it, but I love this first book. This story follows these kids who have stepped through doors into magical worlds and have come back to the real world and are struggling kind of adjusting to being back in this normal world. So they end up moving into this home where there are other kids just like them, and at this home they kind of do all these things to help them get adjusted to being back in the real world. The thing is, all these murders begin taking place at the home. So our main character is like, nah, I'm not gonna die. She decides that she is going to figure out who is behind all these murders. This book is devourable for obvious reasons. It's a shorty. This is more a novella than a full-fledged novel, but that doesn't mean it's not just as satisfying as a novel. It still shows up to the party looking to make an impact. It's not intimidated by all these other big books. It shows up to make an impression, and that it does. It comes in like a wrecking ball. Oh, sorry, the devouring break. It manages to create a super in-depth world in a short amount of time. It gives you well fleshed out characters and characters you want to know more about. Like, give me a doorway into their past and I'll step right through it. Yes, thank you. While the story itself is a lot more different than I expected it to be, I enjoyed the ride. If books could quench your thirst, this one would do just that. It's a satisfying read. Next up here I have Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomny Sun. This is an illustrated book about this alien who is sent to Earth to kind of observe it and get a feel for it. He's at a place in his life where he feels really lonely, and by going to Earth and encountering all these things that it has to offer, he finds that he's not as alone as he thought he was. Hear me out on this one, okay? This is like a picture book for adults. That's the best way that I can pitch it, and that's what makes it an easy contender for a really quick read that you can devour in one sitting. But also, don't be put off by that. I know some of you are probably thinking, a picture book for adults, really? And you're immediately checked out of the video. You're ready for the next recommendation. But come back to me. Listen, this book is super impactful. I myself didn't expect much from it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a nice quirky read. And yeah, it was a nice quirky read. But then I read it and I was attacked by the way it made me feel. Attacked in the best way, albeit. You start reading it and you're like, oh, this is a sweet little book. But then the deeper you get it, you're like, it weirdly made me feel less alone because it made me feel seen, and I related to so many of the things that this book covers. Mostly because it kind of showcases the everyday life, but it reveals it in a unique way that will charm you to death, but then it'll bring you back to life. Wouldn't it be something if books really had the ability to do that? Read it, die, come back to life. Next up, I have a very hyped book, but I have to mention it, mostly because of how fast I was able to consume this book, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. The Cruel Prince is about a girl named Jude. Her and her sisters at a young age were swept away into the world of fairy after the murder of their parents, and now that she's older, she's kind of grown this sense of wanting to belong in this world. But that's going to be a hard task because of the fact that fairies despise humans. In order for Jude to kind of win a place at the court, she must defy the prince. I know everyone ever on BookTube talks about this book, whether they love it or hate it. I'm in the love boat. This book just has such a great addictive quality to it. While the politics in this world are super fascinating, they're also not super complicated, so it doesn't like go over your head, because sometimes fantasy politics can like go over my head and I see it up there and I'm like, yo, can you get down here in my mind? And it's like, no, I'm just gonna stay up here and I won't let you understand. And I'm like, but I want to understand. And honestly, this book flies by without you even realizing it. It's one where you look up and you realize it's been 3 hours and you've been reading for 3 hours straight, but you've been so absorbed in the book that it doesn't feel like you've been reading that long. While the things that go down in this book are very questionable and very cruel, they weren't kidding when they picked this title. I mean, to get straight to the point, fairies are cruel. I'm so glad that fairies are fictional and that we don't have to deal with them. I would do anything to avoid having to deal with them ever. Skydive even though I'm not a fan of heights? You bet. Step on a nail with your bare foot? If that's what it takes. Give up all your books? Okay, we're going way too far here. Good thing fairies don't exist. Lastly, I have here a contemporary story, and that is A Short History of the Girl Next Door by Jared Reck. Now that I think about it, his last name is kind of a pun because this book wrecked me. This book follows our main character Matt, who is having a really difficult time admitting to his friend how he really feels about her. This friend just so happens to be the girl next door, and that is Tabby. While he loves being her friend, he's also developed deeper feelings for her. But before he's able to reveal how he truly feels, his life is hit with a tragedy that completely shakes his world. This is a short and sweet contemporary. Maybe sweet isn't the right word to use for this book. It's short and sad. It'll have you sobbing. I mean, it didn't make me sob, sob, so maybe I'm being a little overdramatic, but it definitely made me sad. It made my heart heavy. Heavy with sadness. This book just has a lot going for it. The writing is superb. Like, I would compare his writing to John Green or Stephen Chbosky. Say what you want about John Green's writing style, but I live for it. The friendship within this story is what really kind of elevates the emotional aspect within this book. Oh, and the family aspect of this story. This book just has a lot of things that I love, specifically points that just make me weak as a reader. Friendship, family, and good writing. I think because it covered just so many of my bookish buzzwords that I was just completely glued to the page. Literally had to unstick my hands from the book. It was a long process to get them off, and it cut into my reading time. Okay, I'm done being stupid now, or am I? Those are all the recommendations I have for you guys today. You guys should let me know down below in the comments if you have any recommendations for some quick, some fast, some speedy, devouring reads. Again, thanks to Disney Book Group for sponsoring this video. The Devouring Grey hits shelves on April 2nd. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I hope your day is bright and that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye-oh!